Hello everybody, welcome to Voices of Friedreich Ataxia. Our goal is to raise awareness and funds to cure Friedreich Ataxia. Today we will talk Mystery Girl by Ashlee Dolby. Everyone's story with Friedreich Ataxia, FA, is so very different, but the journey to reach diagnosis ends up sounding very similar. Mine started a long time before I was diagnosed 5.5 years ago. I had just turned 28 and it was considered late onset diagnosis. By this time, I had had symptoms for probably close to 10 years, maybe even more. It wasn't enough to investigate at first. I was a clumsy teenager but still played competitive sport. I was actually a very good tennis player for most of my teens but struggled as I got older. I knew I didn't have to run far and could easily cover the size of a tennis court, but looking back now, throwing a ball up in the air to serve often threw me off balance. So, like most things in my life, I learned to compensate and was okay having a weak serve if it meant I didn't have to look up too far and take my eyes off the court. I could easily dismiss this as being uncoordinated and was probably very good at hiding it. In high school, I needed a handrail to walk downstairs, but overall it didn't affect much of my life. I remember later at university in a lecture theatre, I would pick where I sat based on the ease of navigating to the seat. I was never a sit at the back of class type person. I'd instead choose a spot that involved not going up or down more than 1 or 2 steps. An issue I hadn't come across at school was that lecture theatres had stairs without handrails. I could easily do 1, 2 was a bit of a challenge, anymore, and it was obvious there was something wrong with my balance. I must have still been playing tennis at about 19 because my coach recommended I go and see a podiatrist for my flat feet. I went there expecting to get orthotics, but he instead watched me walk back and forth, told me there was something wrong with my gait and straight out said I might have MS, so should go and see my GP. This completely shocked Mum and me and was probably the first time we thought this could be something a lot worse and maybe I wasn't just uncoordinated. After a referral from my GP, who assured us a podiatrist should never tell you that you might have MS, I saw a neurologist who ruled out MS and told me if I got worse to come back. I didn't go back for a long time. I finished university, moved to London, travelled and chose to ignore my symptoms getting worse. I knew I was in denial, I just wasn't ready to address what was happening. I even broke my ankle, couldn't use crutches and still didn't do anything about it. I remember sitting in the hospital with a cast on my ankle and they wouldn't discharge me until they were satisfied I could use crutches. I must have talked my way out of it. I was living in Melbourne and 26 before I willingly chose to go back to a neurologist. My symptoms had progressed to holding onto someone's arm for long distances, in crowds, shopping, or when it was dark. I could still walk unaided but had become really good at furniture walking. I saw a different neurologist than last time. I chose to see a neurologist who specialized in MS as I convinced myself after some impressive Google work, that I indeed had MS and the neurologist I saw years ago got it wrong. He spent a whole year trying to diagnose MS. I had multiple MRIs because he was sure the MRI had missed something. Each appointment I'd go back to get my results and was told my brain looked perfect. It didn't, he just didn't know what he was looking for. I had eye tests that looked at my optic nerve, nerve conducting tests, a lumbar puncture, and they all came back clear. That year was awful. It was a vicious cycle of feeling anxious, nervous, relieved, worried and annoyed. Just waiting and being told they didn't have an answer for why I had poor balance and struggled to walk. He eventually sent me to a professor because he just didn't know what more he could do for me. He'd even started calling me mystery girl because as much as my symptoms presented as MS, he just couldn't prove it. Was I medical mystery? Surely not. I was probably only with the professor for 10 minutes. He listened to my story, took one look at me and my test results from the past year and introduced us to the idea of FA. It only took a genetic blood test in the end. I'll never forget the day I was diagnosed. The professor didn't give us much hope. There was no treatment, no cure, and he recommended I buy a house without stairs. I remember leaving and saying to my mum, "Oh well, I've had a good life." After waiting for what seemed like forever for a diagnosis, it didn't take me long to get my head around it. Life wasn't going to be what I imagined, but I was determined to make the most out of life, and still am. Since then I've learned a hell of a lot about FA and myself and met some incredible people along the way. You can still live a great life with FA, it just requires a bit of planning, or a lot sometimes. Meet Ashlee Dolby. My name is Ashlee, I'm 32 and was diagnosed with FA when I was 28. I developed symptoms of FA in my late teens/early 20s. I live in Melbourne, work full-time and try to stay fit and active by doing Pilates twice a week. I regularly visit an acupuncturist and get remedial massages to help with the symptoms of FA. I'm also looking at introducing hydrotherapy into my exercise routine. Keeping busy has helped to keep me healthy and on my feet. This information was taken from Fara Australia with their permission. The link is provided in description.